Imagine a beautiful mountain, covered with snow, a part of the Himalaya, a very tall peak in the background, and a 72-kilometer glacier as part of it. This is the Siachen Glacier, part of the Karakoram Mountains, also known as the third pole, the highest glacier outside the North and South poles. In this stunning area, there are leopards, snow leopards, and brown bears, lots of unique endemic vegetation, and no human habitants that lives there, given that it is almost impossible to live in this severe weather condition or to go up and down these 6,300 meters of mountain without helicopters. This area lies between India and Pakistan, on the triangle border with China. So imagine the beautiful mountains, the freezing habitat, and now imagine a war going on this beautiful setting for years, for decades. There is a territorial dispute between India and Pakistan that goes on for years over this place, which is part of a much larger conflict between the two nuclear enemies. So imagine that camps are built and fire zones declared. This is the highest battlefield on Earth. But I have to mention that most of the soldiers that die in this specific location died from the severe weather condition, freezing to death, and not by battle. These are their camps, which are surrounded by mountains of sewage and garbage that are mounting up since 1984 and will never disappear because they can hardly decompose in this altitude and no one will remove them by helicopters. This is the highest junkyard on Earth. And ecologists believe that several plants and animals are under severe threat due to the military presence in the area and military activities. They are releasing tons of chemicals onto the surface of the glacier, polluting the headwaters of the Indus River and affecting both India and Pakistan waters. On top of the garbage, military movement and military activities are affecting the wildlife, affecting their breeding and spreading disease. Usually, when people think of environment, they think about the negative connection that exists between environment and conflict, like we see here in this example. Environment could be a potential cause for conflict, stemming from either a shortage or abundance in natural resources. Environmental degradation can cause conflict, and obviously, war and conflict harm the environment, both directly, as in the Siachen, and indirectly, like refugees living in nature reserves or disappearance of environmental protecting agencies. I suggest focusing on the positive and less spoken connection between environment and peace. Several groups of people are dreaming a different reality for the Siachen. They are both Indian and Pakistanis. These civil society groups are dealing with nature conservation, with sport, with tourism. There are mountaineering associations and tourism groups and nature conservation groups, both local and international known ones, and some of the leading science institutions. And this coalition of forces came up with a plan to create a transboundary peace park on the Siachen. This park will, first and foremost, will be dedicated to environmental protection and scientific research, while creating a unique reality of sovereignty without military presence. For example, a part of the idea is to build a science center inside the park that will enable the military presence to disengage from the area while not losing the national presence, because they will be replaced by scientific mission, national scientific mission. Imagine that some of the soldiers could serve as rangers, just replacing the uniforms and ditching their guns. There are several examples for running a successful peace park around the world. What I personally love about this example, though not yet an implemented one and one which is in process for several years now, is that it shows that in the midst of an ongoing hard conflict, environment could take a stand on the hardcore politics and make voice on subjects like sovereignty and security, and not just talking about trees and flowers. I am personally involved, both academic and practically, in promoting this set of connection between environment and peace in the Middle East. And this is what I want to show you, that environment, when grasped in a certain way, and by going through what you may call the back door or the so-called low politics, can be influential and can be supportive of a high political conflict resolution. And this is not to say that environment on its own can resolve political conflict, but it could play a role in contributing to the resolvance of this political conflict in different layers and different topics of cooperation. But it will only be effective if relating to the general picture. For example, the CHN Peace Park is gaining some recognition, and in 2006, the Prime Minister of India declared that he wished to see the CHN as the mountain of peace. But it's actually more than that. Environmental subjects are inherently more suitable for conflict resolution than other issues, because they do not stop and naturally cross political boundaries. Therefore, conflicting parties are more willing to sit together and negotiate environmental subjects rather than other political subjects or even social ones. And I think that environmentalists that fully comprehend the nature of environmental subject are pragmatic. They do not think, or they understand that it's not only a matter of a win-win situation to talk of environment this way, it's a must. So even when there is a political stagnation and no cooperation or negotiation takes place between the two sides, like unfortunately we have in our area these days, environmental cooperation can still persist and create some connection between the two sides. Ecological issues usually do not threaten the most controversial part of the conflict. They may provide a first safe step into negotiation, into dialogue, one which will eventually develop into more political one. In the last 4 years, I am very fortunate to be part of the Vanlier Forum on Environment and Regional Sustainability, in which we created an experiment of science, environment, peacemaking, and optimism. And we have the perfect laboratory, the Middle East. What we believe in the forum is that environment and politics cannot be separated from one another. And this distinction is not so trivial, because there is a tendency to look at environmental issues as a non-political one. And although nature knows no boundaries, environment does, because it refers to the way we, the people, or we, the society, are managing our natural resources, and politics is always a part of it. Our goal at the forum is to enhance regional sustainability, by creating regional environmental cooperation. And for us, it is key to revive some of the optimistic tone that disappeared from our area in the last decade. So we had the belief, we had the energy, and we have the optimism. And now what? What we actually do is to get people working on environment from Israel, Palestine, and Jordan to meet, to sit together, and to think together. We have groups of environmental students from Israel and Palestine that are learning about our joint environment. We had groups of environmental NGOs and peace NGOs that brainstorm together this set of connections that exist and can be enhanced between their fields of work. And this kind of meetings is far from being just places to share information. It's above all a human activity and a personal encounter. I remember not so long ago sitting in a basement up north after 2 days of intensive field trip with the students. They were sitting together, and suddenly the students just started dancing debka together and singing awful Celine Dion karaoke together. It has nothing to do with environment, but everything to do with peace building. One more unique feature of environment that makes it so suitable for peacemaking activities is that it requires long-term processes in order to get to a full and good and comprehensive solution. This is lengthening the shadow of the future. And during these long-term processes, a platform of dialogue can be created, replacing suspicion with shared knowledge and common goals. So, in the forum, we gather different and several groups of professionals, environmentalists from Israel and Palestine to meet once a month and discuss different topics. We have groups dealing with environmental education, with renewable energy and agriculture, with public health, with the history of water. And by facilitating this space for joint meetings and joint creative thinking, we're actually promoting a regional network of environmentalists and the platform for dialogue. We're creating the platform for dialogue. And because we want to enhance or to locate environment at the forefront of political negotiation, we made an effort to include in our meetings government officials from both sides. In Vanlier, we're trying to promote both environmental peacemaking and environmental peace building. And what are those? Environmental peace building usually refers to the attempt to influence the way people think and act towards the conflict by getting them together to meet and to break the stereotypes, like we did with the groups of students. Environmental peacemaking is a more of official route. It's trying to affect the political negotiation, the political process itself, in which the environmental project will be part of the resolution itself, as a part of the political process. I'm optimistic by nature, and lately we see signs, both locally and internationally, for the growing recognition of the part environment can play in such political processes. Internationally, in the last year we had 2 Nobel Peace Prizes given to environmental activists for their contribution to peace, security, and stability. And locally, if we'll take the Track 2 proposal for building a peace park in the Golan Heights, as part of the resolution between Israel and Syria, we can have a great example for environmental peacemaking. This park is supposed to be not only a part of the resolution, but a major part of it. It's supposed to enable to talk on hardcore issues like water, demilitarization, demarcation of borders, and this aside from other issues like the deep affection Israel has for the Golan Heights nature and landscape. Throughout the 90s, there were many proposals for cross-border environmental projects between Israel and its neighbors. Some were mere dreams, but some were strictly planned and details. But most of them did not materialize because of the political situation and because the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is not resolved. Lately, when I spoke to one of the former governmental officials that took part in these negotiations, she told me that sometimes she felt like dreaming, and sometimes there was a sense of euphoria among the negotiation teams as if they are creating new Middle East for them and for future generations by creating and by promoting these cross-border environmental projects. So now we know a bit of the theory and we see some positive signs in reality. And I feel that here in Vanlier, we managed to create it on a small scale. And I want to emphasize that this is not only related to the positive thinking of the people that are involved in the project. It is in their interests that, by coincidence or not, are shared interests. If you take any environmental project, it is conflictual by nature. And whether it is cross-border or not, and all the so more when two hostile nations are part of it. So is it complicated? Definitely. Crucial? Yes. But possible? Absolutely.